What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, this is where we talk about the news topics that happened in the scale world of RC over the past week. If you enjoy the Scale News Update every single week, make sure to hit the like button. And let's jump into this week's topics. First up for this week, a website we don't talk about very often, but Etsy, the popular, maker, creator, crafting type website, they have put out a new set of rules for the products that they're allowing to be listed on their website. And it specifically has an impact on people who are doing 3D printing of items and listing them for sale on the website. Etsy has now rolled out a new policy stating that any 3D printed parts being sold on their website must be the original work of the seller. So if you have a 3D printer and you wanted to print parts to sell on Etsy, those need to be parts that you personally designed, not something that you have a commercial license for from another place or anything like that. That is no longer allowed. You must be the original creator of the work that you are producing. Personally, I can see the value in this new rule, trying to make things more unique and not just having 100 listings for the same thing. A lot of times things that maybe have a commercial license or maybe are just being straight up 3D printed based off of somebody else's work and no original credit or monetary value being given back to the creator of the actual model. So I get where they're going for with that, but it will most certainly have an effect on the number of products and listings and therefore revenue that goes through the website. I did a quick search on there just to see how many RC related things specifically relating to this industry were on there. And I did find quite a few from some names that I knew, personally in the RC world. People who are doing the Night Customs printing, that he's got a commercial process that he allows people to print and sell his products. But by Etsy's new rules, that will no longer be allowed. So those listings will go away. Then there was a number of other ones. I even found some of the parts that I designed that were for sale on there, and I definitely don't do any commercial licensing. So, it's something I can see where they're going for. Now, will it be policed? How accurate will that be? Or will it be a flood of just parts that come up and get knocked down and pop back up again? Or is it going to be, community enforced? That hard to say. But if you've been searching for some 3D printed flexible dragons, probably going to have to look elsewhere here in the future. And will that be a downfall to Etsy? Will that traffic just go elsewhere and pop up some other sort of site that becomes more popular? I guess time will tell, but found that might be interesting to some of you viewers. Maybe you shop on there regularly, maybe not, but nonetheless, now you know. Next, new from Furitek, the Mini KOMODO Unity. This is a new 2-in-1 outrunner setup that is based for the mini crawlers or micros, whatever, mini. That scale's always hard to exactly name, but this is a cool new setup. The 2-in-1, the ESC portion is kind of what is on the front side, the side that mounts to the motor plate, and then you have the outrunner behind it. So you have a longer motor shaft that basically passes through that base housing. Overall, this is super cool. I love that they did this. Just makes those vehicles that are even tight already just a little bit easier in general. Super cool addition. They've got in a number of different kind of like configurations depending on what vehicle it's meant to go in, since everything's pretty compact in there. I thought that this was an awesome new release from them. Performance, things like that. I haven't actually run the KOMODO all of that much personally, but I imagine that the performance of that will be similar. But it'll be interesting to see how the new ESC that is built into it will handle everything. Will the new tiny footprint attached to the motor, will it have heat issues or anything like that? I guess, again, time will tell, but I thought this was a really cool new release from Furitek. They're available on their website now. There's links to them down in the description below, as well as links to all of this week's topics. And then we finally have a date on the release of the Traction Hobby and Primal RC collaboration of this 1/6 scale Porsche 934. It is said to be releasing in June, which we're in June, and we're past the halfway point. So like the next couple of weeks, we should see the official release of this vehicle finally. One that we've been looking at for 2 years maybe at this point through small leaks and teasers and things like that. Again, 1/6 scale. The wheelbase on this is 375 millimeters, which is like 4.8 inches. So a decent size, but you know, it's not massive as these old Porsches are not all that huge themselves. It does look more like 1/10 scale stuff underneath of the body. Maybe it's 1/8 scale-esque. That's kind of more along the lines of what I would like assume, but a lot of things just kind of look like they may be more 1/10 scale. I know it only has a single XT60 plug on it, so that has a certain amount of amperage that it's going to be able to flow on its own, which isn't maybe as much as I would expect on a 1/6 scale labeled vehicle. But regardless, this is one that I think looks fantastic, and one that I really want to own one of these. It's being shown in 2 different colorways. One is a Gulf theme and the other one is just a red. Now it is a like rally-esque, slightly taller ride height with a little bit more, you know, aggressive tire package on it. But again, overall, I think this thing just looks fantastic. It does show an interior in there as well. Helps kind of sell the look. The chassis underneath looks very, you know, basic RC car, 8 scale, you know, just truggy or buggy, whatever type base. Nothing all that impressive as far as that part looks, but maybe once we get more details and some really good close-ups, we'll find more information about it. We had discussed the new Phaser D2 release from Kyosho, which is their drift platform, and Kyosho itself is releasing some option parts for that platform already. A couple of pages popped up with some of this information. I haven't seen all of this hit the US sites or anything like that just yet, so I don't know exactly all the details or what else is going to be available, but I did find this photo with some of the parts shown in it, so you can expect that and maybe more here in the not so distant future. Thank you to Zoku RC for sponsoring this month of the Scale News Update. Zoku RC makes chassis upgrade sets for a number of platforms, such as the VS410 Phoenix, where you can get one of their upgrade kits, and basically it has everything needed to complete an upgrade, including body mounts, bumper mounts, all the chassis braces, hardware, and instructions needed for something like that. They have ones for the VRD platform as well as the SCX Pro. They've got more forward bias setups, and all of them, again, have the same style of including everything you need to do the job. A very nice method, very complete. They offer different materials, both aluminum, carbon fiber. Some of the chassis also have the option of different width sliders. Definitely worth taking a look at. And there's a coupon code that you can find down in the description below, so you can save a little bit of money if you're looking at purchasing one of these new chassis kits from Zoku. And thanks again to Zoku RC for sponsoring this month of the Scale News Update. And also thank you to the channel members who help support the channel a little bit extra. If you're interested in also supporting a little bit extra, you can find a link down in the description below. You get access to videos early, like the Scale News Update, which you get the night before. You'll get the skid steer video now, which doesn't come out until this Wednesday or Thursday, as well as videos like After News Delight, which is an extension of the Scale News Update, where we go back over the topics, talk a little bit more candidly, maybe go off script here and there. But if you're interested in that, again, information down below. Thank you to everybody who supports, as well as everybody who watches in general. And this Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, come watch Livestream Takeover, where Matt and I, as it will be just before we both depart for Utah for the We RC Rock Nationals in Cedar City. So come join us and catch up where we're at just hours before we're supposed to leave. Should be a good time. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. And if you work for an RC company and like to see any of your products on the Scale News Update, you can send me an email to news@harleydesigns.com. Include a description, a photo of the product, and a link to where it'll be able to be found on your website. Love to take a look at those, see if we can get it included in the Scale News. DSM Offroad just released some universal comp beds on their website. These are just that, flatbed design that can go on the back of most flat rail style chassis, and they have them in a number of width options and a couple of length options as well. These are super reasonably priced, look pretty good. If you're running a cab only and you want to kind of finish out the rear of your comp truck, take a look at these, look pretty good. There's a link down in the description below as well. Then from Nasty Customs, some SCX6 parts that they just added to the website. They've got a new Ranch Wrangler bumper for the F250 body specifically. This combines some PETG carbon fiber for the main structure with some TPU for the upper structure. So even though this is all 3D printed, has some flex, may increase the durability of those 3D printed parts. They also have some 3D printable or 3D printed foams from NebulaRC. These are a 2.9 to work with the SCX6 sized wheels and tires, but you can buy either a printed foam set or you can get the files from them to print them yourself for non-commercial use. A cool option to offer them in both ways as far as that goes. And they also added some rear bumpers and slider options for the SCX6 as well. HPI keeps building back their catalog. This week they added 4 Toyota licensed bodies to that. Now, 3 of them are variants of Supras, and one of them is the Toyota MRS GT. So all of these are 200mm bodies. So, you know, on-road platforms, that type of thing. Everyone loves a Supra, right? MRS GT also looks pretty good. I like what they did there. Also, go check out STL Sunday if you're interested in learning a little bit more about CAD. This week's video was about modifying or working with adding to a downloaded STL files. So if you have a file that you downloaded but you want to make some changes to, I go through some steps that may be helpful for that process for you. I'll put a link down to that video in the description below as well. This week, Traxxas released a new version of the Traxxas Slash. This time, it's a late model. So that's another dirt oval focused Slash. Different than the, well, not a Mud Boss anymore. I believe that they renamed it to Modified. The late model has more of a full hood that covers the front tires completely. So a little bit of difference there. Underneath, it's pretty much the Traxxas Slash as it's lived for quite some time. It does come with the BL2S system. Like all of the Slashes now, you can only get them with the brushless combo in them. Now, it's not the VXL 3S system. It's only 2S capable, but it is brushless at least out of the box. So Traxxas did release, I believe, 5 different colorways for this new vehicle. One of them being a Fox livery. The other ones are just different color of a Traxxas livery, but you know how that goes. You can customize that if you'd like, or pick up the orange one. That's always the best way to go. And next, Jconcepts released 4 new bodies for the Mini LMT. A 1988 Chevy Snoop Nose, which I had to Google because I was not familiar with that term, but it is a monster truck specific term, something that they, you know, specifically modified these bodies to have this funky look. While I saw it initially, I was just like, that looks very odd. But it's named that way because of the full size that did things that way, and that's where this, so as odd as Jconcepts sometimes make bodies look, this one was on purpose. Beyond the Snoop Nose version, they also have just a regular Chevy 1500 from 1988. Then they have a 2005 Chevy 1500 and a 2014 Chevy 1500. So really covering all of the Chevy base, well, not all of them. We know that they probably missed your favorite one or for what. And Proline also had a Mini LMT release. This time it's the Dreadnaught tires made for the Mini LMT. So these are a more aggressive, less scale, you know, oriented tread pattern for that platform. You can sign up there if you're performance oriented. Then I ran across this press release on the Chinese RC news sites, and it's specifically about a new FlySky Radio that should be coming out in the near future. Now, it's labeled the FSMG11BTBS. It'd be nice if it had a little bit shorter name. But basically, what I'm gathering from the translated press releases is that they're putting out a radio that the functions and the functionality of it are not meant to really be completely programmed through the interface that is on the radio, which we're used to more often than not currently. But instead, they're pairing it with an app for a smartphone, so you can get into those more advanced features on a phone where hypothetically you can have a more in-depth or, you know, maybe a more intuitive UI. Something that can maybe have, you know, some live updates or some better explanations, links to things that may be helpful. Who knows exactly what? The complete details on the functionality between the smartphone app and the radio itself are not something that I was fully able to get from the press release that I saw, but I think that it seems like something that is not that foreign to us. Many of us have programmed our ESCs or things like that through a Bluetooth app on our phone, and it's likely just a very similar type of thing. Although radio functions can be much more in-depth, and based on how many channels you have, it can get, pretty lengthy. So I see why they're going that route, and maybe it'll be something that we see adopted more and more down the road. Maybe we'll also have easy sharing of model or configuration setups that you can, send or transfer between people or friends to make programming just something that is easier for everybody. I'll cover more about this radio once more and clearer details are available. But that does it for this week's news topics. For this week's question, I want to stay right on the topic of radios. I want to know, what is your preferred radio setup? Have you got a ton of radio? Do you just stay RTR radios because if something happens to it, big deal, you can replace it easily? Or do you try and get all of your cars onto one radio? Have you filled up the model memory of whatever that is? I'd like to hear it. Put your preferred radio setup down in the comments below and let us know why it's your preference. So I love reading through your comments. It's my favorite part of the Scale News update. But that is going to do it for this week's news. As always, I appreciate you all for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Channel membership's available if you're interested in that. But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks as always. We'll see you on the next one.